Alan, good morning.
Hello, hello. How are you? How long are you gonna be there in Israel?
We're coming home Sunday.
Oh, wonderful. Taking the El Al flight or the United?
United.
Oh, good. So when does it leave? Saturday night or Sunday morning?
Sunday night.
Oh, so you'll be home Monday then, huh?
Monday morning.
Wonderful. Okay, well, good when you went. Now they have all kinds of restrictions again now, huh?
Right.
When you go in the stores, do they have to wear masks? Do they require that?
No, not yet.
Mm.
You do see people wearing masks.
Mm.
We wore masks in a big crowd.
How's Yaakov doing well? How was he doing?
The bar mitzvah party was last night.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. It's wonderful. So we go for simchas. That's the main thing.
Amen. Mitzvah. So we're on Chav Tes Amud Aleph.
What do you want to do tomorrow, first of all?
We're going to do what we did. I have to do it early. I have to do it 5 p.m. Let me see.
So it's a 7. Wow.
Let me see.
For me, it's okay, but I don't know for the others.
Fine for me.
I'll have to do it 5 p.m. I have no other choice because of the simcha here.
Okay.
And then 5 p.m. And then Motzei Shabbos like we did last time.
Well, we can do it a bit earlier because Shabbos ends earlier. We could do it maybe at 9, which is 7 by you, or you would still want to do it 9:30.
No, 9 is too early.
No, we'll do it 7:30. Do it 9:30 p.m. 7:30 Sunday.
Okay. Saturday, 9:30 p.m. Okay.
Today will be 7 a.m. 5 p.m. right now. So we're on Sukkah Chav Tes 29. We were talking about things that you can do in the Sukkah or out of the Sukkah. Ki had Rabbi Bar Chana ki Avikanum Kamid Rav Chizda Merhate B'Gemara Bahadi Adadi. In the Sukkah, they would learn the Bekiyus, which means they would, they not Be'iyun. V'Hadar Ba'ayim Esmar, and then when they would leave the Sukkah, they would go into detail. Amar Rav Mani Mishtay V'Mitalalto. Cups to drink, that they could keep in the Sukkah. Mini Mechla, but like pots and pans that you have to take out that they use to cook the food, bar or plates that are dirty, bar and metal, you have to take them out of the Sukkah. Chatzva v'shachil, like a jug of water that are not pretty, even though they're used to drink, should be barme metalta outside the sukkah. But ushraga b'metal alta. But the candelabra should be done in the sukkah. Other people say no, outside the sukkah. Have a sukkah gdola. In a big sukkah, you can have your candelabra. But the sukkah k'tana, in a small sukkah, Shabbat by Shabbat tzvachim, then you can't, because it's too, the quarters are too cramped. It's gonna, if you have a burning candelabra, it will smell up the sukkah, and in that case, you wouldn't do it. Then the Mishnah said, Yardu Kshamu, if it started raining, so if it ruins your soup, you have to go out, Tana, Mishatisrach HaMikvah shel Grisen. You're talking about like a bean, some kind of bean preparation, which goes bad if it rains into it. Abaya v'koyosef kamed Rav Yosef b'metalta. Abaya was sitting in the sukkah in front of Rav Yosef. Noshav zika kamaisa tzibusa. They were like thorns, small pieces of branches of the schach that the wind would blow. It would land in their soup or in their food. And Rav Yosef panali mani mehacha. Rav Yosef commanded that he wanted all of his kalim removed from the sukkah because he was a mitzvah because of that. I thought you have to wait until your soup, or plate of beans gets ruined. He was very sensitive. He was a sensitive person. This also is kamisha tisra mikvah domile. This is like that case. He was eating the sukkah. It started to rain. And then he left the sukkah. We don't make him go back if it stops raining. If he went back into his house to finish his Suda, he can finish the Suda back in the house. Similarly, if he was sleeping, the yard it started raining, and he went out of the sukkah. We don't make him go back in the sukkah and sleep there until it gets light. So or is it until he wakes up? Meaning if he wakes up, he's got to go back, or he doesn't have to go back even until it gets light. Toshma or which means with an olive till it gets light. So the horse is tarti. Is it that you need both dinim? So Toshma, we said tarti. You have to say, you have to do both. You have to wake up and you have to wait till Amad HaShachar. It says no. It means he has to go back in the sukkah once Tzalosh HaShachar, but he can sleep until that period. And the Shulchan Aruch says if he was sleeping in the sukkah and it rained, went into the house, and then the rain stopped, he doesn't have to go back in right away. He can sleep and is home until Amad HaShachar. You have to wake him up to go back out there. Or until he wakes up by himself. Then he can go back in. That's the Ramah. Then the Mishnah said, when it rains, it's not a good simon for the person. It's like the Mishnah gave an example, somebody who serves wine to the king, and the king throws a glass of water in the guy's face, but it's a sign that he doesn't want you to serve him. So they asked the following question: who's throwing the water into the person's face? Toshma. The example is the person's Rebbe throws a pot of water into his face. I don't want you to serve me anymore. So that's the concept that once Hashem sort of threw you out of the sukkah by raining on you, it's a bad sin. Now, the Gemara is going to give us multiple examples of these kind of bad simanim. If there's a solar eclipse, simin ra l'chol olam kulo. It's a bad siman for the whole world. Like a human king that made a feast for his servants. Like a lantern. He left a lantern there. And he got angry. He told his servant, take the lantern and let him sit in the dark. Obviously, the king's not happy with them. Tani Rabbi Meir. That describes a solar eclipse because the sun provides light. Tani Rabbi Meir. When the constellations or any of the bodies, the moon, the sun, when they have an eclipse, the
whole thing, a solar eclipse, you can predict months ahead of time. There, I guess they figured this when they more wrote, they didn't realize that they could predict it, but now they can do it 6 months ahead of time. So they could, for a sim and ra, you can have sim so far in advance. Can that be? I mean,
they probably couldn't do it so far in advance then.
So they didn't know. Obviously, they didn't know that you could do it. Now we know. So that might say, how could that be a sim and ra? If we know it's going to happen in 6 months, that couldn't necessarily be a sim and ra.
Okay, but it's still the Matthias. It's occurring, and the Ma'oros are being eclipsed. At that time, it's considered a sim and ra, even though you can predict it. Of course, because the Ma'oros normally are shining. And Rav Meir says it's a siman ra l'sonim shel Yisrael to Jews. But they should makuseim. Jews are suffering in the gullahs. So any sort of makkah that comes to the world, the Jews are going to be affected as well. And the teacher of the cheder comes to school. He's got his whip that they used to punish the children. Now, who's going to be afraid? The student that normally gets patch every day in school because he behaves badly. So Klal Yisrael is in the same category. We're getting patched all the time. When there's a solar eclipse, because they count their calendar to the sun. If there's a lunar eclipse, it's a bad simon for Jews because the Jews set up their calendar according to the moon, and the non-Jews to the sun. If they see the eclipse on the east, then it's bad for the people who live in the east. The Emsarakia, I guess it's where in the heaven do you see the eclipse? Do you see it in the eastern sky or the western sky? And if you see it above the Emsarakia, that's a simon for the whole world. Pot of Domim Ladam, you wake up and you see a very red sun, Cherev Bala oil, that's a simon that there's going to be war. If it looks like a sock, it's like a famine. Lazu. If you see sort of both colors, you have both war and famine. So, if the eclipse happens when the sun rises, then the bad will delay in coming. And also, if the eclipse occurs when it's set, the punishments will come quickly. Some say the opposite. Elohei Eloka Imo. Every nation, if it's punished, the various idols that they worship also are punished. Shenamar v'cholohei Mitzrayim eseshvatu. That Mitzrayim was going to be judged with punishment, so the gods of Egypt were also punished. As long as Klal Yisrael are doing what they're supposed to be doing, they don't have to be afraid about all these various simanim that we talked about. Hashem el derech hagoyim al tilamdu. Don't learn from the path of the non-Jew. Also, so don't be afraid of simanim that I will place in the heavens. It's the nations of the world that will be afflicted. It's only the non-Jewish world. For 4 reasons leads to a solar eclipse. If the leader of the Jewish people, the halacha, passes away, and they didn't eulogize it properly, then that brings an eclipse. A Nara, girl between 12 and 12 and a half, who had been given kiddushin and was raped and was calling out, and they was in the city, and nobody came to save her. So that's a reason for an eclipse. The Al Mishkav Zachar on homosexuality. 2 brothers that were killed. These are bad simanim. 4 other reasons that other of the ma'oris, like the moon and the stars, al koisve plaster. Somebody writes forged documents to fool people. People give false testimony. People who raise small animals in Eretz Yisrael because they graze in their neighbors' meadows, and therefore there's gzela. People who cut fruit trees because it's like kicking a Kodesh Baruch Hu is giving us brachas with fruit in the tree, we cut it down. There are 4 reasons why people's assets are given over to the government. So when you have a star, Johnny owes Harold $1,000. They write a star. Harold holds on to the star. And then when Johnny pays it off, Harold should destroy the star to not be able to collect it a second time. But there were people who held on to the star, and therefore there's a chashash for double payment. So if a person does that, he's going to lose some of his assets to the government. Al malve derivatives, on people who loan money in interest. People were able to chastise sinners, especially these kind of sinners, who are lending money with interest, keeping shtaros. So people who don't call them out on it are increasing aveiros that are done in the world. And so if they don't protest, that's a problem. People who publicly announce that they're going to give tzedakah, and they don't give it tzedakah. So these are all examples where a person's assets are going to be taken away anyways to the government. For 4 reasons, a person's assets will also get lost, given to the government. You're supposed to pay a worker a paid hourly worker, he holds on, he doesn't pay him. They don't pay, or the you pay him late. You delay payment, and don't pay him at all. Somebody, they have responsibilities and debts to the tzibur, and they don't carry it out, and they let their friends be the only ones to have to step up and do it. Dal gasas ruach, people who are haughty, is the gasas ruach connected kulam. That's the worst. Aval banovim, people who are modest, ksi banovim yishu eretz v'sankol rav shalom. The anovim will inherit the world. New parrot, lulav agazu. The lulav that was stolen. Rashi says kafshel 20, it's made out of palm or vahayavish. If it's dry, Rashi says the beinan mitzvah mehuderes. In the mahus of the lulav, it has to be nice. And if it's yavesh, it's not nice, so it lacks hidur. That's what Rashi learns. Tosfos says it's compared to esro, tichsiv bohoda. The lokomosh appears at kuntrush because of zekeli vaveim. Rashi seems to suggest that if it's not hidur, now hidur is usually only chatchila. You do the mitzvah. If you have a nicer mitzvah, there's an inyan of hidur. The ein van ve'er lachatchila. Rashi seems to suggest that if it's not muhuder, lachatchila it's not good. But Tosfos points out that really it's not possible if it's not hidur. So the yavish, it's because it's different because there's a hekesh to esrog. And the reason Rashi says stolen is not good because l'kachtam lachem, it's going to be yours. Sha'ashera v'shirani dachas. And Asherah is a tree that's worshipped for Avodah Zarah. Or if the tree was in an Ir Anidachas where the whole city and has to be is worshipped Avodah Zarah, and the din is you have to burn it. So then these things are considered that they don't even have a shear. It has to be at least 4 tefachim in lulav. And if it's only made l'streifa, ain't shear kaya. It's considered as if it's already burnt already. Niktam roishoy. The top of the lulav was cut off, or nifritzu olav, or the leaves were spread from the shedra, and they're not connected, tight. So again, it lacks hidur, and therefore it's possible. Nifridu olav, they're connected by the shedra, just on the top, it's a little separated. Kosher. Rabbi Yehuda says you should tie them up if the leaves came apart. Sine hara barzel shapes. One will explain what that is. They're a little different than regular palms. The leaves are very minimal. It's still kosher. Lulav sheish bo shlosha tefachim kedei laneh, but kosher. It's got to be at least 3 tefachim, says the Mishnah. It says lulav agazel is possible, and it made no difference. Loishna b'yontav rishon, loishna b'yontav sheni. That if the lulav is stolen, it doesn't work either for the first day or the second day. Now the Gemara doesn't understand. Bishma yavesh, to invalidate a dried lulav, it says hadar be'ina v'leka. Since there's a special pasuk, kapos had l'kachtem lachem b'yom rishon creates hadar kapos tmarim, and the lulav is compared to the esrog. So if in some ways it's not 100 acre lulav, it's possible. I understand why it would be possible both the first and second day. It's not a kosher lulav. Ela gozel, but if it's stolen, you stole a lulav, so it's not yours. So I understand Bishma Yontav Rishon Techsiv Lachem Mishalachem. So I understand why it should be invalid on the first day of Yontav, because it says Makachtem Lachem Bayom Harishon. The issue of Lachem is only operative on the first day. Ela B'Yontav Shein Yamai Lo. Why shouldn't you be able to use a lulav hagozel on the second day? Amar Rav Yechim Mishum Rav Ben Yochai Mishum Dahavle Mitzvah Haba B'Aveira. It's a different reason. Any mitzvah that you do through an Aveira, you can't be mishtamish with. And they can be mishtamish with at any time. Shenemar V'Avesim Gozel was a Pesach was a Chayla. That you brought a korban that was stolen is not good. Okay. So just housekeeping. First of all, regards from Hillel and Sabrina.